Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Today we are back in the Digital Garage series, and I have two very special guests from Allied Bank. Mujahid Ali, who is the Chief Technology and Information Officer, and Sohail, who is the Chief Digital Officer. Thank you very much for being with us. I'll start with you, Mujahid sir. So you've been with this bank for a long time. Let's talk about this technology journey that you've started and the challenges and where you think you've reached so far.
Thank you, Asif, for this interactive discussion, and the subject is very interesting. I would go back to the acquisition of the bank by the sponsors way back in 2004 by Ibrahim Consortium, and at that time when they acquired this bank, the technology footprint of the bank was at very low level. And I believe at that time I was also part of that due diligence team, and it has a very basic level accounting system and basic level banking system with the name of Unibank. And the immediate step the sponsors and the board of directors and the management took, and that was the replacement of the core banking software. And I believe when I see after 2004 and now it's 2022, it's just almost 17 or 18 years, that single decision uplifted the bank
amazing
to that level, which at that point of time, maybe other than the sponsors who are very tech savvy, I would definitely say, nobody perhaps would have imagined. But the important thing which the chairman of the bank was having in his mind was that without technology, without proper infrastructure, you can't compete with the forthcoming digitalization and other things which are prevalent in the market. You can't compete.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of the major decisions. And it took us the bank 2 to 3 years in order to make them settle down, and then at the same time they started with best of the best software making companies on the banking side. It was Temenos, it was iFlex, it was Silver Lake, it was Mysys.
Amazing company.
They were all good companies, and eventually. With all due diligence, with all brainstorming, and with all having consultants on board, KPMG took as our consultant, and then we finally decided to have this Temenos, which was at that time even one of the best core banking software. And today it has proven that Temenos is still one of the best banking software.
And that's become the center of your technology.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And that was the nucleus body, actually.
Yeah.
And then we, carried on with different, auxiliary software systems like, on risk management, on fraud prevention systems, and on this, collaboration software, and then, workflows, and then, the aim was to minimize the paperwork and to make the decision much faster.
Gee, thank you, Mujahid. Great journey, excellent technology journey. You are one of the leading banks from a technology perspective, well known in the industry, and I think the idea that the visionary owners and board had of having a new core banking, I think has become the nucleus and the basis of the technology. I want to move on to Sohail. You being a chief digital officer is great. 10 years back, we were not thinking these positions would exist, but being in there with a chief digital officer, it's a great responsibility as well, because you're bringing a lot of pieces together from a digital journey, IT, business, all of those things. So, as Allied Bank is in the journey of digitally enabled enterprises, where do you think Allied Bank has reached so far? What are the areas that have worked well? What are the areas that are challenging? And how are you planning to move forward with that?
Thank you very much, Asif. I think digital, as you mentioned, is a new and evolving field. So I think the foundation which Mujahid Sahab has mentioned is something which is very critical to any digital journey.
Yeah.
Having a right set of maybe core banking and surrounding applications, because digital is not only, I think, so to speak, is only having a good application at the forefront. I think it's more to do with the end-to-end automation of the processes. So I think the journey we started back in 2004 by having a right core banking in place and all other supporting softwares, I think that helped us to spur this journey on a rapid and a better pace. And the main thing which we usually measure as a benchmark of our digitalization journey is transaction ratio. At this point in time, we are processing around 67% of our transactions digitally.
Wow.
So this is the ratio between counter or maybe human assisted and
from a banking industry perspective, is this on a higher side, I would assume?
To sum it up, as far the directions are concerned, so these are the 4 key directions we are following as far as the digital journey is concerned. Now coming to the challenges. Challenges mainly is towards really making people to understand the value of digitalization and enabling them to catch this importance of this whole journey. In this regard, in the first couple of years, we really tried not to launch any campaign which is targeted towards customers. Rather enable our internal people more on the digital platform. So the first milestone which we really set was to target our own employees and staff to be 100% digitally onboarded.
Wow. So, and that is the big area, because you bring that, then the change management.
At this point in time, we are meeting on a regular basis, and all ABL staff, 98-99% of them are not only onboarded on the digital platform, rather using it on a regular basis to do all their transactions, whether it's bill payment or transfers or all that, because that's very important. So if my people sitting in the branch or on the field are really aware of what we can really offer through our product, they'll be better able to to serve their customers, to make them understand what the digital platform can do for them. So this was our mindset. So it took us maybe 1.5 years or 2 years to really bring our own.
And now you've achieved 100% there.
Yes.
Huge.
So that's what we're measuring even today on a regular basis. So this was the first milestone. And then, whenever we are really bringing in new products, services, and all that, there's a continuous process wherein we are training our own people to really keep them updated, to ask whatever questions they have, and then use that base, because we have 1,400 plus branches, to really reach to masses with those digital solutions and with the kind of awareness which could be passed upon by that network, because there are so many people who really don't go to social media and other channels to understand that. And likewise, there is because there's an aspect of resolution of issues. So that is also linked to the same education and awareness which we are imparting to our.
Very good. And Mujahid, in your opinion, technology has been there enabling all the digital thing. How did COVID play in all of that?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. You see, Asif, though it was unfortunate happening of pandemic era that existed for the last 2 years extensively. But on the other hand, if we see the impact of that pandemic vis-a-vis the work from home, or maybe doing the business through VPN or through different channels, that increased at a much faster pace. And I would say perhaps this was a catalyst to bring the digitalization at a more faster speed. And in the same period, we saw that even the regulator, State Bank, they introduced certain, regulations vis-a-vis digitalization. So, as Sohail mentioned, that this, Asan account, Asan mobile account, and then, different products vis-a-vis RDA, Russian digital account, and it was all possible with all those, technologies. And the important thing which we are, mentioning on this forum, that it is the building blocks. We had this in our roadmap, that we have to have this VPN connections, for example.
Yeah.
Even nobody thought about that pandemic would be there a few months down the line, but we had these infrastructure already set up. And when we saw this pandemic, and it was the regulation, and it was the timings of the offices was reduced, but on the other hand, how to handle it. So we were the bank. We were even given this award by some company that we were pandemic ready bank. So I think it's the vision. As I said, that this bank, mashallah, has a high vision vis-a-vis the technology, vis-a-vis where we have to be, 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. So we normally make our enterprise architecture 5 years, 10 years, and the strategy accordingly. Right Bank, and along with some other two banks, we are exercising, kind of test case for this blockchain application on this KYC, Know Your Customer.
Know Your Customer.
So we are very well aware of that, technology. Without the advanced technology, you can't, exist. And disruption is must. So it is better that you create disruption yourself.
And the concept of burning platform is there as well. You come and say that no matter I'm growing 30%, 40%, 50%, and my base is growing, but if I don't do this, the platform will burn. And that's, I think, is key. Digitally enabled enterprises, what we see around the world as is that one is this pivoting to pandemic, pre-pandemic, all of that. But in the C level, having this saying, doesn't matter I'm growing today or I'm happy, profitable. Are we creating the burning platform? So blockchain is an area. Other areas are there. As you said, employees' readiness is saying, if we don't do this, we won't survive 5 years from now. While this digital journey is we know we are all on this way, and Pakistan has its own regulator and other challenges and literacy and all of that. When you were talking about this digital leadership of ABL, let's talk about some of the resistance or challenges that you've faced. Of course, customer adoption, employee adoption, and what are the things you're doing in this journey currently to do that. So we like to understand some of them so we can all learn from that as well, and then other organizations can adopt some of those things.
Digitalization is not only, as I mentioned in the start of my conversation, it's not only putting up certain applications at the forefront, maybe mobile application, ATMs and CDMs, and then say that we are digitally enabled. It's not the case. I think all areas. I think Brad King in one of his recent book, Bank 4.0.
Yes.
He mentioned that in all areas we need more technologists really to think everything in terms of technological.
Absolutely.
So whether it is operations, whether it is risk management, whether it is fraud and risk management, so everything has to be digitized. So that's the point. And maybe I'm getting a bit informal on the way. The best maturity model of any organization, from a digitalization point of view, they don't require any chief digital officer.
Yeah.
Because every area has to work on to play their own part to really digitalize the organization. So I think that is where generally, from the leadership point of view, banks are struggling, because it's not only one particular department or role which has to take digitalization up to a certain level, because all other areas, all bank, from all functions point of view, is to play their own role, maybe to upgrade their processes, to really think every time, every business problem.
And do you think, as a CDO, Are you becoming a catalyst for them to think about those things? How does your organization's role start to become important for all of these areas? The business, I talk about always this. See, it's been from many years people process technology, and that doesn't change. You talk digital or you talk blockchain. So how are you seeing Allied Bank? And I'll come back to the same question to you, adopting to this.
I think that's the exact word you utilized. I think it's a catalyst because that's the role where chief digital officers are bound to play these days, because that's where we have to go in every area, see what are the processes, what are the functions which could be further automated, can really help the digitalization, and because it's not only the front end which has to be automated, because if someone is submitting an application very quickly, but the process time behind
is not working,
is not supporting it. It's taking the same 14 days to process the application. That doesn't serve.
That doesn't serve.
The same is the case with maybe transaction banking. Say, for example, if there is one transaction which is stuck due to certain issues, but if our tired to really resolve the issue is same 3 days or 4 days, I think that doesn't serve the whole digitalization agenda. So all those processes, all those functions which are really at the back end also has to be digitalized to make a bank digital in true sense.
Absolutely.
So I think that's where the challenges and digital officers, CDOs are playing, and me myself also, we are playing the role of catalyst to go to different areas to seed in those ideas
and help them go
those things and coordinate. I think there's more of a coordination, maybe in a catalyst role which is there to make those areas to come up and be a part of this.
So in this challenge, you've been with the bank quite a bit of time. I want to cover a people aspect, because one of the things now that's happening, and you talked about all of these organizations. I keep talking about people like Pfizer. Why was Pfizer able to do vaccine quicker than others? Why was, why is Netflix like this? Uberism is a normal concept. But the talent and people aspect is huge in this, because, digital without this people leadership is not. So how is the bank transformed, or is it still transforming from the people aspects of this digital enterprise? Because to become a digital enterprise, you can't do it without. So leaders like you, but then your -1s, -2s, -3 have to have that vision.
Yeah, Asif, this is a very challenging question, and this is a very important question, I would say. I was reading ING report 5 years ago, and you must be hearing this statement that every now the CEO of the bank is saying that we have to be a technology company having a banking license. So actually, the statement was from the ING CEO.
5 years ago.
5 years or 6 years ago. So it was primarily the statement from his side. So the idea is, and another statement I just read that, and that was that at that time he said, the writer, that 90% of the management at that time, he said, it's all general MBAs or general education, and maybe 5-10% people who are really technology people or techie people. But today, he says at that time, he said that if you have to be, to that digital footprint, this ratio should be reversed. So 90% should be the digital savvy, and maybe 10% economist or chartered accountant. Even then, they should know what is technology. So I think for that we have to have, think onto these lines, and this is the great challenge, because the technology barrier is so much that you have to call the people, you have to give them the trainings, you have to get them understand that this is how this process has to be reformed or reshaped. So for example, we have now created under CDO a BPR section. Now BPR section means business process
re-engineering, yeah.
But under the digitalization concept.
Yeah.
That the process which is already there, now that has to be reshaped vis-a-vis the digital process. Maybe there may be 7 steps behind, but now that has to be maybe 5 or maybe 9 steps.
Absolutely.
But that has to be digital. So I think that's a great challenge, and you must be aware, you are a technology company, that today the exclusion of these people who are like tech savvy, that is very high. Attrition, I'm talking about. Attrition. And this is not only one company's problem. This is the worldwide issue now. And for that, we have to have good nurseries, we have to have good institutions, we have to have good syllabus, we have to have the latest technology education. So we are facing this challenge, and we are trying to cover it by having flexi hours, or maybe work from home facility, or maybe people recruitment at different stations. And after this pandemic, that has proved that you can.
Give me a bit of feel. How does the bank see benefits out of it? Do you get better customer insight? Are you now sitting on board meetings and C-level meetings and talking about data-driven decisions? How's the culture transforming that we are now a modern digitally enabled bank? So the benefits you feel this journey is bringing to Alight Bank, of course, there are still ways to go, but how are the benefits that you're seeing?
I think the first thing which I mentioned, which is maybe a proof of coding, that if we are processing around 70% transactions through self-assisted mode, so that's the kind of workload which we have offloaded from the counter. And in return, our people are focused more on customer services and to better pay their attention to the people who are visiting to their branches. So what are those means which we can really can provide to our people on the ground to really make use of that intelligence which is required to be there to better serve their customers?
Yeah.
Is like, because we're on the verge of introducing the modern CRM software, but instead of rolling out a large software implementation, we started rolling out microservices. Say customer 360-degree view is a small service which we introduce. So, for example, if you walk in the customer and you into branch and you are a customer, so the person who is dealing with you on the click of the button will know what is the relationship of that person.
So the more insights are coming to them.
And likewise, what is the next best offer? What is the best thing which we could do? What are the complaints which are the pending?
And that's happening today.
Yes, it is happening today. I think that's the kind of data support or kind of intelligence which can really pass on to the customer to better understand what is the profile of the customer, what is the potential, what is the kind of complaint side of it. So I think that's where the deepening and the quality of the relationship, which is directly linked with. So with the passage of time,
this will improve further.
This is contributing to the number of the customers we are adding, to the customers we are retaining.
Retention and all of that.
Yes.
So to conclude this discussion, I want your view, and is where do you see Alight Bank in 5 years and this banking industry moving?
You see, Asif, again, this is written on the wall that maybe not 5 years, in the next 10 years, it will be a great revolution in the banking industry. And CDO is sitting here and he may augment it. That you see this branch concept will be all over. As Bill Gates said that banks are not important, banking is.
Banking is it.
So that very much illustrates this thing that you see you have to have the banking, open banking concepts. You can do banking while you are on the queue, while you are on the travel, while you are sitting here. So this is happening today. And 70% or 67 or 70% transactions are being observed today, as of today, May 2022. So I am talking about the next 5 to 10 years. So certainly the brick and mortar branches, the number will be reducing. but as the ecosystem is the main enabler.
Yes.
And that is a challenge for Pakistan. Because in Pakistan, we have this, the lacking in building the ecosystem. It's not only the one bank or few banks, it's the whole ecosystem. Your State Department, your, public departments, your, bus wala, your ready wala, your, rickshaw wala. Everybody has to be onto that, curve. Vis-a-vis education, vis-a-vis understanding, and vis-a-vis making the infrastructure robust and flexible, and also the policies. Sorry, I mean, this is very much important by the regime. That how much they are,
We didn't talk about cloud, and cloud is the big elephant in the room right now from a policy perspective, correct?
Definitely. Because if you talk about blockchain, if you talk about robotic process automation, if you talk about cloud, so all this needs a high resilience because it gives the transparency. So you have to have all these things on an ecosystem. Then you would be able to get the success. So I think the great part is that the regulator and the state bank they are moving towards this direction, and I hope so. We will be achieving this.
But I think, as I look at the big picture, because we're talking about the achievement of the bank. But if you look at the biggest picture, Pakistan has around 21% of its population which is financially included.
Yes.
The rest is all gap. And even if we take this 20% of the inclusion, I think not more than 5-6% of are really enjoying the credit access. So I think in return, this is a great opportunity, huge opportunity, which digital banks and all those can come and fill in to really provide an easy, financially viable services to these masses. So from that point of view, I think there's a great role which has to be played, as I mentioned, by the regulating bodies. To really, we saw in the past few years that they brought a lot of enabling regulations like RDA, local onboarding, and in the COVID days they relaxed the biometric, requirements and all those. But I think the requirement of going ahead of it, more than that, by really bringing the private credit bureaus and linking certain, just like you can't. Today, it's not possible to have an electricity connection without CNIC. So I think these kind of things, the services, the basic services, are to be linked today or tomorrow with having a bank account.
So that will bring the financial inclusion.
So that means that people with a certain financial background, so this having an account and paying through a proper banking channel, it should not be a luxury. So it should be so gradually
it should be a mandate.
It has to be linked, and this is also linked to the documentation of economy. So
very important.
These are the kind of steps which may be required going forward to bring in that gap, which is around 80 or 79% of the population right now, to be part of this
wider
ecosystem, and then build an ecosystem within Pakistan to document everything, maybe utility bill payments and all other rental payments and all that, to have effective credit bureaus
to do that,
to enhance the credit access to these masses, which is predominantly unregulated right now.
Absolutely. And it'll happen when we have more data, more things coming in. I think the journey you guys have described, I thank you for that. I think Allied Bank is an example of a bank that is digitally enabled. And in this series of digitally enabled enterprises, thank you for being our guest. Thank you everybody for listening. I hope you had enjoyed the discussion. It was a very informative discussion for us. I think banking industry is moving forward till we have the next series, next discussion. Thank you, Mujahid Sahab. Thank you, Sohail Sahab, for being our guest. See you next time in this Digital Garage with a new guest. Thank you, everybody.